afternoon. You're watching Businessworld Live. I'm Danny Laurel. We kick off this broadcast with more details on that massive deal in the banking space. Again, Union Bank is acquiring Citigroup's consumer banking business here in the country for 55 billion pesos. So why 55 billion pesos? Well, Union Bank will be paying a cash consideration for the net assets of Citi Philippines plus a premium of 45.3 billion pesos that is based on the anticipated increase in the risk weighted assets. Now, the required equity is approximately 9.7 billion pesos as of June this year. This acquisition covers Citi's credit card, personal loans, wealth management, and retail deposit businesses. The transaction also includes Citi's real estate interest in Citibank Square, that's in Eastwood, three full service bank branches, five wealth centers, and two bank branch lights. Citi says they selected Union Bank through what it describes as a competitive auction process. It noted that Union Bank is the right choice based on many factors, including its complementary product lines, advanced level of data analytics, digitalization, as well as an operational and customer friendly culture, which they say is similar to Citi's. Some 1,750 Citi employees, including senior management, are expected to join Union Bank. Now, will the acquisition immediately affect Citi customers? The answer is no. That's as the whole transaction is still expected to be completed by the second half of next year. Citi assures its customers that the banks will go through the necessary planning to ensure a seamless transition. However, take a look at my terminal here. Right after this deal was disclosed, Union Bank had gains of around 2.9%, and that fell the most since November 29. Look at that downfall, closing down by 7.8%. That started to fall down just around noon time, and this according to several analysts. This from Carlos Temporal at AP Securities. The stock is down probably due to the anticipated dilution from a planned stock rights offering. He says that investors could be selling on the news after also some profit taking might be happening. It did rise by more than 80% this year. I'm going to pull out the year to date chart for you so you can see how this downfall is just a little piece of the pie. I mean, if you compare to how Union Bank has, of course, risen over the past year alone. Now, why this stock rights offer? Well, as we reported, 55 billion pesos is in consideration. And they do, of course, need to fund that acquisition. And to be able to fund that, Union Bank will be raising additional capital of up to 40 billion pesos via a stock rights offer. Now, if that happens, according to Wednesday's closing, according to Bloomberg calculation, that would be around 364 million shares. That's around 24% of the bank's 1.52 billion outstanding shares. So that might cause some dilution there, causing, of course, investors to start selling off. Now, let's take a look at our index here and how we closed today, up by 1.81%. That is to the tune of 7248.05. That is, of course, on the back of other profit bargain hunters rather jumping in. You've actually got, let's take a look at the biggest movers here of the day. You have the biggest one was actually Mega World here. Let me just pull that out for you, up by 3.92%. That is following AC Energy, the biggest leader here, up by 4.72%. So really a reversal of fortunes, and investors just swooping that up after, of course, we've seen quite a difficult week the past week in terms of news on the back of Omicron and, of course, Typhoon Odette. Still, you have some sitting out these gains. Pure Gold, for instance, down by 1.5%, together with GT Capital and PLDT. And finally, just before we end the markets report, Figaro is also still continuing with the IPO. It's going to be another IPO in the works. They have set their price at 75 centavos each. However, that is quite a discount compared to what they were hoping to first do, which was 1.28 pesos per share. So that will allow them now to raise just around 700 million pesos in their IPO. So significantly lower than what they were hoping for. Now let's check in on the other headlines we're keeping our eyes on. President Duterte assures the victims of Typhoon Odette that relief efforts will continue. The president visited Siargao to oversee the distribution of the relief packs. He said that financial aid for affected residents will be available this week through the Social Welfare Department. Malacanang is meanwhile appealing to the public not to take advantage of the situation following reports of looting and overpriced goods being sold in typhoon affected areas. President Duterte has instructed concerned government agencies to look into this matter. Typhoon Odette's damage to agriculture has reached 3.1 billion pesos as of today. The damage and losses have been reported in Calabarzon, Mimaropa, Bicol, Western Visayas, Central Visayas, and Eastern Visayas, as well as the Zamboanga Peninsula, Northern Mindanao, Davao, and Caraga. The typhoon affected almost 40,000 farmers and fishers, with volume of production loss at over 90,000 metric tons across 65,000 hectares of agricultural areas. As of Wednesday, the infrastructure damage from Odette still stands at 585 million pesos. The damage tally is far from over. It's now breached 3 billion pesos just on agriculture. And here to give his insights, we have with us Professor Ronilo Balbieran, economist at the University of Asia and the Pacific. Good afternoon, Prof, and welcome.
Good afternoon, Dr. Dan.
Sir, let's kick off, of course, with this tally. This with all the devastation that we've been seeing, are you pricing it even more than the 3.1 billion that we've already seen in agriculture? How much more risks are there, and how big of an issue is this when we talk about agriculture, which is 10% of our GDP?
This is bad, no, from the point of view of the agricultural sector, but taken from the point of view of the whole economy, this should have a very minimal impact on the 2021 GDP already, because you do not deduct damages from these calamities from the GDP. But it will have huge implications on the productive capacity of our economy towards 2022. So we can see the damage to negative impact to GDP of the Typhoon Odette towards the first quarter of our GDP, specifically the one of the agriculture. So I'm on the lighter side. We can see that reconstruction is very fast moving, and therefore this should counterbalance the impact on the agriculture, and this should be able to add a little bit more cash to recirculate the money, the income to the whole economy, and therefore this should minimize the impact on the total economic growth.
Sir, just to be very clear, will we be able to meet the GDP targets of 5 to 5.5% this year?
I think so. At this point, well, I'm hoping. No, I'm hoping that our resilience and the spirit of Christmas. So, I mean, this is bad, but it was good that this particular super typhoon hit us when we opened our economy. So it hit us when the mobility index, the Google Mobility Index, what was already at its highest before the Typhoon Odette happened. So therefore, the Filipinos were actually moving around the country, getting out of their houses. So since the time of the lockdowns last March last year, and so therefore this particular impact can already be minimized in terms of three things. Number one, on the reconstruction spending. Number two, on the relief spending. No? So the relief goods that will be spread out, and specifically the cash that actually that goes with the relief goods. No? So we've seen a lot of government officials and private sector distributing cash itself. So in this time of situation, the circulation of cash is actually the one that will really soften the impact of these kinds of calamities. So, and this is happening in the context of getting nearer to Christmas. So therefore, our spirit of mercy, our spirit of charity, our spirit of bayanihan all come together in order to actually bring out the large amount of savings that we have in our financial sector, and this should be able to actually overcome the negative impact of the typhoon or that. And in fact, may I courageously forecast that it may actually give us a little bit of boost in terms of the fourth quarter GDP. Again, the negative impact will not be deducted to the GDP of the fourth quarter. So this additional spending on reconstruction, relief, donations will give us additional money to circulate the purchasing power throughout the nation. And this should actually keep us on track for the 5.3 to actually I'm optimistic. I'm super optimistic to the point of 5.7 before the Typhoon Odette. I was actually if we can just grow at 8%, which is very possible, no? At the fourth quarter, if we grow at 8%, just recovering the negative 8% from the fourth quarter last year. If we grow at 8% for the fourth quarter, we can already grow at 5.7%. So
Mhm.
you scale it back, it's still high versus the forecast of the other the forecasting agencies. Now, World Bank was forecasting 5.3. So I think we can still grow between 5.4 to 5.6, and we encourage our viewers to just continue sending their help, sending their cash donations, and this will certainly redistribute our income, and therefore we can somehow, together as a nation, make this super typhoon, the impact of this super typhoon, a little less than what we expect.
Okay. Sir, of course, we never expected this, or at least not right now. But at the same time, this is not the first super typhoon that we've been dealt with. We see these things every year. In the year of COVID, and in the year that we are spending so much of our revenues, we're at a twin deficit, we've been borrowing offshore. To what extent has the government prepared for this eventuality of these types of events, and to what extent do we actually have that funding, in case of these emergencies?
Well, again, the good thing, no, against the bad situation, the good thing that happened, that happened when we have opened up the economy. This would have been a very different story if Odette came to the Philippines in the middle of our lockdowns, no? And so we cannot actually move around. So therefore, this should be able to balance out our fear that the government may actually run out of money, because we have already seen, no, the magnitude of private sector donation, private sector cash out for this particular, you've seen, no, generators, oil, food. Stores are actually running out of things to sell because of this particular event, no? So therefore, this should balance out in terms of tax collections of our government, because again, I'm looking at two things, no? The mobility of people. Are we moving? So now we are moving. So in the middle of this pandemic, so that came, but we're still moving. So, and I think the government has been restoring a lot of roads, then the airports. And therefore, the domestic tourism should be back on track. And a large part of our domestic tourism, especially to the regions that have huge share to our economy, like Central Luzon, Calabarzon, and then North Luzon. So these were not damaged. So therefore, we can expect rearrangement of travel plans of our middle class, no, from these regions, region 6, 7, 8, and region 10, as far as Cagayan de Oro is concerned. So we can expect them that just they will just reroute to these regions, and these regions, region 1, 2, 3, NCR, and 4A, and part of Mindoro, they're still there. They're more than 70% of our economy. And so we hope that these regions should be able to bring the counterbalance for the negative impact of Odette.
Okay, thank you so much. That was, of course, Professor Ronilo Balbiaran, economist at the University of Asia and the Pacific. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Doc.
Thank you for joining us. Today is December 23rd, 2021. Catch Business World Live again. That's tomorrow, 9:30 a.m. for the market open and 3:15 p.m. for the market close. I'm Danny Laurel. Mask on, wash hands, stay safe, Philippines. We are One News.